We're in where are we? Kansas City.
Yes.
Actual Kansas City, Northeast Kansas City, in Sheffield Cemetery, and we are looking for a specific person. Well, now we're out of them. Oh, there we are. And we found him. Edward, also known as Ed Asner. So if you don't know, Ed Asner was an actor. He played in many, many roles, movies and TV. He's probably best known for The Mary Tyler Moore Show and Lou Grant, which was a spin-off of The Mary Tyler Moore Show. He was in, was it El Dorado? I believe he was in. And probably, I imagine most of the little bit younger generation probably knows him best as Santa Claus from Elf. So that is Mr. Ed Asner. He was an Army veteran during the Korean War, and he passed away at the age of like 91. Pretty well-known dude, born here in Kansas City, buried in this Sheffield cemetery, which is a Jewish cemetery. He was of Jewish faith. A little bit up the hill, nice cemetery, not the best neighborhood.
It's my old neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's where I grew up.
I'm ready to get back to the vehicle because, well, I hope it's still there when we get there. So we're walking on by and headed towards the Jeep, and I saw this name, and I'm not making fun, but I couldn't help it. It's Come On Now. Come on now. I mean, really? That's somebody's name.
That's awesome.
I think it is awesome. I love it. Come on now. We are now at the Elmwood Cemetery in Kansas City, and we are visiting Armour, which, if you are not familiar, Armour did, well, hot dogs probably is the most famous thing. They did they had a meat packing company. The company had two large packing houses, one in Milwaukee, one in Chicago, and John Plankington retired from Plankington and Armour in 1885, and the Armour Brothers was organized. So this is Simeon Armour, and he was one of the Armour, he was the eldest brother for the Armour meat packing company. So if you like the Armour hot dogs, then he is laid to rest right there in this beautiful Elmwood Cemetery. And we are looking for a couple of other people in here. Hopefully we can find them as well. We are still in Elmwood, and these are the graves of Hellsberg. And this is Morris Hellsberg. This cemetery has quite a few elites, as you would call them, which is pretty interesting. Morris Hellsberg actually opened his first store in Kansas City in 1915, and it was originally called Shaw Diamonds. And that shortly after the store's founding, Morris Hellsberg fell ill, and his teenage son Barnett Hellsberg Sr. became responsible for the family business. In 1930, Hellsbergs created the Certified Perfect Diamonds program. Diamonds that the jewelry industry labeled as perfect under Power 10 magnification. So Helzberg House of Treasures opened on Country Club Plaza, the store, in 1948. The store had 3 levels, sold jewelry, silver, fine china. By 1959, Helzberg Diamond had 15 stores in 6 markets. And by the end of the 1970s, had grown to 42 stores in 16 different states. By 2010, there was over 220 stores nationwide. Helzberg was the first nationwide jewelry retailer to qualify for membership in the American Gem Society. That is pretty interesting information. Okay, our last person to visit here in Elmwood Cemetery is Leanna Lovell Chambers Kearns, also known as Annie Chambers. And she moved here to Kansas City from Indianapolis. And in the 1970s, there were businessmen, missionaries, railroad workers, cattlemen, westward migrants. Young, unmarried men largely outnumbered the women. She established a brothel north of the Missouri River, and within 2 years was successful enough to acquire an elegant 25-room mansion in the red light district and what is today's City Market. So if you know anything about Kansas City and you know about the City Market, that's where she was. She became very wealthy, avoided police intrusion through steady streams of bribes and fines, and she was proud of the fact that she provided a lucrative future for the destitute young women who worked for her. She referred to her brothel as a resort, charged up to $10, half of which was retained by her prostitutes. Other establishments charged as little as 25 cents, but didn't have the luxury or privacy afforded by the Chambers brothel. In 1923, Chambers reformed her life, turned to Christianity, and after that, her brothel became a legitimate boarding house. The remaining years of her life were spent lecturing against the evils of sin, though she never addressed or denounced her own past. After she died in 1935, her mansion was actually used as part of the City Union mission and then was eventually razed in 1946. We are at Mount Moriah Cemetery, and hopefully you can see this. And you probably recognize the name Russell Stover as the candy guy. Russell was actually born in Kansas, but he had his first big store in Kansas City, and that was in 1931. His headquarters was at 1206 Main Street. They made, obviously, chocolate-covered candies that everybody knows pretty well. Russell Stover died in 1954, and his wife continued with the candy company. In 1993, Russell Stover acquired Whitman's chocolates, and I'm sure you probably have heard or seen those. And then in 2014, a Swiss company that makes premium chocolates, Lindt and Sprungly, haven't heard of those, but I've heard of Lindt, they're really good. They actually acquired Russell Stover Candies and Whitman Candies. So they became a big kind of conglomerate. There they are. I can't remember if I mentioned that we were in Mount Moriah Cemetery. That's where we were just seeing Russell Stover. Also buried here is Dan Quisenberry. This is upside down. Somebody's buried right there that's not Quisenberry. There he is, and he has his own, has a little bench. So Dan Quisenberry was a Major League Baseball player. He was a pitcher for the Kansas City Royals from 1979 to 1988, almost 10 years. He was traded to the St. Louis Cardinals, where he played for a couple of seasons, and then San Francisco Giants for a season. He ended up getting the Rolaids Fireman of the Year, the Royals Pitcher of the Year. He was a 3-time member of the American League All-Star Team, 5-time American League leader in saves, and he actually published a book on days like this, poems and down and in. He passed away from a brain tumor at the age of only 45 years old. Stan Quisenberry is very well known in Kansas City, obviously because of the Kansas City Royals. So if you're a Royals fan, I'm sure you know who Dan Quisenberry is. We have got one more person in this cemetery that we want to find, and that will be the end of our little cemetery trips here in Kansas City. The next guy is pretty world famous, and we hope we can find his resting place. We found our final person here in Mount Moriah Cemetery. I'm going to get a little closer, so hopefully you can read that. That is Walter Cronkite. Walter Cronkite, as many of you probably know, was a very famous, world famous television journalist. He was born right here in Missouri, in St. Joseph, and he's buried here in Kansas City. Mr. Cronkite covered some very important history stories in his lifetime, some of those being the Cuban Missile Crisis, the assassination of President JFK, the Apollo 11 moon landing, the resignation of President Nixon. He even covered some of the Vietnam War. He covered just so many news stories, we would never be able to name them all. He was known by, I think, just about everyone that watched any kind of news. So that was actually our final story and final person that we wanted to visit here in the Kansas City area. If you missed our part 1, please go back and check that for some more famous people that are buried here in Kansas City. We hope you enjoyed our little cemetery trip, and we will see you on the next one.